Hey everybody, Mr. The Fanboy here, back for another video, and this time, this is my salute of Impact slash Global Force Wrestling, as they're called now in 2017, man. They're now called Global Force Wrestling, but it's gonna take me a long time to get used to that. So, Impact Wrestling, even though they recently sold that name, Impact Wrestling in 2000 in late 2017, or should I say October 2000 October or November 2017. This is also my thoughts on the upcoming Bound for Glory pay-per-view, which I'm thinking about going to a restaurant bar to see if one of the restaurants um plays it. This is an idea I got from the legendary YouTuber Bruce Blitz. Bruce Blitz, who doesn't like to watch streams because he feels it's stealing from the industry. So if he doesn't pay for it on his television, he goes to he goes to a restaurant. He goes to a restaurant to watch all these quote unquote events, especially WWE shows, which he doesn't like ordering. So that's something I'm gonna do. Since when I don't feel like or don't have the money to pay for it on television, I'm thinking about going to bars. Or if I don't do that, I will just watch the replay on one of the streaming wrestling websites I go to for all my wrestling and MMA and boxing media, and watch it there and watch the links there. But with that being said, this is my salute of Impact slash Global Force Wrestling in 2017 and my thoughts on the upcoming Bound for Glory 2017 pay-per-view. And with that being said, let's get started. Gonna get the negative out of the way first. The stuff I didn't like about TNA and some of the stuff that made me stop watching TNA. You haven't seen any videos. My last videos were my rants on Impact Wrestling haters who are WWE fanboys, and of course New Japan Pro Wrestling haters who are also WWE fanboys. Those are the last videos I did, which I got so many positive comments and reviews for. Well, this is what I think about Impact Wrestling currently, and Impact Wrestling has been awesome. Only problems I have with it are the various departures that happened this year. First you had Jay Bradley departing. Sucks to see him go. However, Aiden O'Shea, he really wasn't doing much. He was awesome when he was there, but he really wasn't doing much. So not really that much of an impression, but it's still something to see him go. However, I am happy to see that he's back in his original stomping ground, which is Ohio Valley Wrestling. Ohio Valley Wrestling. Next is the departure of Magnus. Now this one really hit home. The departure of Magnus. This guy was one of the guys in 2014 when all the veterans left Impact Wrestling. Magnus was one of those guys, along with EC3 and Spud and the Bromance and many other wrestlers, kind of keeping TNA together, who rebuilt TNA from the ground up after all the veteran wrestlers disappeared, after all the veteran wrestlers left for WWE. And I was so happy when they brought him back. One of the things I loved about Jeff Jarrett coming back to Impact Wrestling, returning to Impact Wrestling, was when you got to see so many wrestlers return, and so many wrestlers I wanted to see debut, like Chris Masters or Chris Mortadeschi as he goes by now. So many wrestlers return and debut for the first time in Impact Wrestling. And after his program with EC3, and I wanted him to challenge Bobby Lashley, and him to be the top star, and him and EC3 battle to see who is the next AJ Styles, as Jeff Jarrett was saying when he came back. He was trying to find the next AJ Styles. Well, right now, in my opinion, that guy was Magnus. Magnus. He was groomed to be the top star. Then he left for Jeff Jarrett's GFW promotion. So I was really angry that Alberto Del Rio, who was awesome, but Del Rio was a champion in Mexico, and I was still El Rio was a champion in Mexico, and he was here in TNA. He was here in TNA because things didn't work out for him in WWE. And if you go back to 2015 and watch one of my AAA Lucha Libre promotion reviews, you'll see my displeasure of Alberto Del Rio, me voicing my disapproval of Alberto Del Rio leaving AAA with their championship to sign with WW with the sign with WWE. So I really wasn't happy to see him in TNA, but he kept putting on awesome matches after awesome matches, and it was immediately accepted by the fans. But I want to see Magnus, Storm, or EC3 as get the shot against Lashley, guys who have actually built TNA, not a guy who was champion somewhere else and decided to come to TNA when things didn't work out for him in the WWE. So that's another thing that kind of turned me off to watching, turned me off to wrestling for a little bit. But so yeah, Magnus leaving. That's the biggest departure. Matt Morgan was only there for a cup and coffee. He wasn't there that long. The next two departures are Robbie E and Jesse Goddard. Robbie E, I eventually saw leaving because I didn't see a place for him in this newly formatted Global Force Wrestling style, Impact Wrestling style product. I didn't see where he would fit in here. But Jesse Goddard, really sucks to see him leave. He was really coming to his own. He was one of the ones rebuilding TNA from the ground up. But like Jeff Jarrett said, you're seeing a lot of new and old talent re-debut in TNA. The next, he's still with TNA, but the disappearance of Rockstar Spud. Of course, his last feud was the terrible feud between him and Swoggle, which I was initially excited for because at first they were teasing Spud being the babyface in the feud. Then Spud later attacked Swoggle and he got booed, turning Swoggle into the face and Spud the heel, and he had to weigh it in it. And I was and Spud hasn't been seen on Impact Wrestling since, so that turned me off. But the reason Spud has not been on Impact Wrestling is I'm part of his fan page on Facebook. And he's wrestling the indies. He recently, early this year, beat Jeff Jarrett for a heavyweight championship. So that's why he's not featured in Wrestling. Well, these were all the disappointments. These were all the disappointments from Global Force Wrestling. These were all the negatives. Now for the positives. Impact Wrestling, GFW, despite all the behind the scenes drama, as always with TNA, a phenomenal product on screen, despite all the money and financial problems and all the problems they have behind the scenes. TNA always puts on a great product on the screen for us to watch. TNA just gets better and better. You got John Morrison, something I've always wanted to see. I've been wanting to see John Morrison in TNA since late 2011 when he left WWE. I've been wanting to see him in TNA. There's even a fan-made version of what his TNA theme would sound like. Back in 2012, someone had that, and I especially wanted him in 2012 with TNA. That I didn't like 2012, but that was one of TNA's best years where everyone liked them. You had Aries, Storm, and Rude as top guys. Aries, Storm, Rude, Styles, Joe, and Danielson as top guys. That was one of TNA's best years. I especially wanted Morrison in that mix with that talent and roster pool. But it's cool to finally have him in Impact Wrestling. Johnny Mundo, loving this feud with him and Eli Drake. My next one, Eli Drake. I always said Eli Drake would be a future world heavyweight champion. I thought that'd be years from now. I'm talking 5 years now, with me in my early to mid 30s with Eli Drake being a champion. But that was now. That was just just 1 to 2 years later, 1 to 2 years later, Eli Drake finally captures the heavyweight championship in the gauntlet. In the in the gauntlet gauntlet match. And Eli Drake has been awesome. Eli Drake, despite being the heel during his awesome feud with Moose, him and Mordecki's feud with Moose earlier this year, I enjoyed their antics more than the babyface Moose. I enjoyed them more. They were much better wrestlers and just much better characters in that feud. So finally to see Eli Drake, much sooner than I expected. Eli Drake, a world heavyweight champion, man. A world heavyweight champion. EC3 Grand Slam, Grand Impact champion. The Grand Impact championship. Never held that title before. I wanted EC3 to back when he was a babyface to challenge Bobby Lashley again for the heavyweight championship and reclaim his throne as a babyface. But it's good to see him with another title. Then something I didn't expect to see. EC3 just months ago turning heel. EC3 after being attacked by El Phantasma and Psycho Clown. Now EC3 is back to being a babyface and is teaming up with his old rival Storm and Eddie Edwards, who is Eddie Edwards' storyline is still his best friend. Best friends. That's another thing. The America's Top Team, Bobby Lashley, America's Top Team and Bobby Lashley feud. Phenomenal stuff, man. Phenomenal stuff. Bobby Lashley, Moose feud. Phenomenal stuff, man. Can't wait to see the showdown. Bound for Glory. Jim Cornette being brought back. Never been so happy to see Jim Cornette. And I'm saddened to hear how brief it was. He's already gone from the company. Love Jim Cornette as a authority figure. Loved hearing Jim Cornette's various shoot stories. So was really happy to see him back on screen as an on-screen character. That was a great sense of nostalgia. Sucks didn't last long. He's already gone from the company. Speaking of what's his name? Then of course Jeff Jarrett. He revamped everything. He made Impact even better than I thought he was gonna be. The first week was the second week was so much better, and from there on, Impact Wrestling just kept getting better and better and better. And in my opinion, they peaked with the Impact Wrestling in Dubai shows and the Slammiversary, which I gotta review that sometime. I will be reviewing that as part of my archives series. I will be reviewing the Impact in Dubai when they were in India. Another thing that turned me off of Impact, I wanted them to make India a permanent place for tapings, a permanent place for tapings. Good to have the Impact Zone. Good to have the Impact Zone, but if you can get out and go to bigger places, do it. And to only return, have this huge expansion in India, only just to return to the same Impact studios here in Florida, here in the United States in Florida. That kind of just turned me off to TNA. Every time TNA takes a step forward, they always take one back. But but going back to Jeff Jarrett revamping TNA, he revamped the tag team division, the mid card with the Grand Impact Championship. The main event title scene is always good. And of course, the X Division. Start off with the tag team. You got Renault Scum, Adam Thornstone, and Luster, who the Adam guy is currently out with a torn pec, which is why you haven't seen them. Then you got the new tag team that debuted at like several weeks ago, Ohio versus Everything, and are now tag team champions, recently defeating the newly LAX team, which I'm also enjoying. Never been happy to see Conan in a while. Never thought I would see Conan back in Impact Wrestling after the way he left several years ago. And what he's been saying about professional wrestling, especially the American counterparts of professional wrestling. I've never been so happy to see Conan back in Conan back in wrestling, but love the new LAX team. Sucks they couldn't get Hernandez back. They couldn't get Hernandez back. You got Hector Garza, and Laredo Kid, with Hector Garza being pushed currently right now as a as a single star and a rival to Mundo, which I'm also enjoying. Then of course you got the return of Crimson, who is now going by his real name Mayweather, and of course Wilcox, who I think is Jeremy Pluckett from NWA All Stars, or now NWA on Fire, or NWA Inferno, which is what they're called. That's the NWA territory in Tennessee. Tennessee, as the Veterans of War, Badass New Army tag team, Badass New Army tag team, and then you have there's this jobber, there's this hilarious jobber there. I can't remember his name. I can't remember his name. Um, what was that guy's name, man? I'm on I'm on YouTube right now. What's his name? I can look him up. Can't remember his name, but yeah, he's hilarious. He wears the blue and black singlet. He has the hair, the facial hair. This guy is hilarious. Guy is hilarious. He's even bigger jobber than Grotto was. He's even more goofier than Grotto is. Love the storyline with Grotto and Laurel Vaness, which I initially hated at first. It was a distraction on the show, but then as weeks passed, he kept getting good. Then of course, then the big reveal that due to his new partnership with Joseph Park, he can now stay in America. Love the KM character, which brings to my next point: the Knockouts division. Excellent. Love Laurel Van Ness as top heel, and love Rosemary as one of the top baby faces alongside Allie. And saddened to hear that Gail Kim will be retiring soon, but it was coming eventually. She's like 40 years. Isn't she like 40 years old now? Like I said, Impact Wrestling, man, just awesome. So much positive stuff about Impact Wrestling. Oh yes, I almost forgot the return earlier this year, the summer of this year, earlier this year, spring of this year. Not only the return of Loki, but the return of Sanjay Dutt. And not only the return of Sanjay Dutt finally defeated Loki to win his first X Division championship. Sanjay Dutt has been with TNA from 2004 to 2009, and in none of his stints in Impact Wrestling did Sanjay Dutt ever win the X Division Championship. He was one of the greatest wrestlers, one of the most athletic wrestlers never to win the X Division Championship. So happy about that. Loved his feud with Low key. Love low key. However, I wish he didn't wrestle in that suit. It kind of distracts. It kind of takes away. It doesn't take away from the match, but it makes his wrestling look sloppy at times. I wish he had his normal tights, man, or remove the suit before the match. Remove the suit before the match. But yeah, low key. So yeah. So I mentioned the return of low key. Low key. Loved his main role. He even had a dream match with him and Mundo a couple of weeks ago for a shot at the title. Hopefully probably won't, but hopefully he does get an eventual shot at the title and becomes a world champion. I want him to actually push low key to actually keep him around for longer this time. Um, Longer this time. Next is oh yes, and of course I mentioned then of course you got the return of Matt Sydal. Matt Sydal. So happy he's back in Impact Wrestling. Matt Sydal, he should have never left TNA or Ring of Honor. He's a product of those companies, in my opinion. He's a indie TNA product. Matt Sydal. Matt Sydal. The Indies, Japan, Mexico, in TNA are where he is. He had no business in WWE. His WWE run was, he had several good matches, but his WWE run was absolutely terrible. And Evan Bourne is one of the worst names ever. So happy he's not that. He's now, no, I no longer recognize that name. He is back to being Matt Sydal, man, and love his instrumental theme, Starman, which I came out to. Love that theme, man, and love the facial hair. One problem I always had with Matt Sydal, this was actually, it wasn't a problem in the indies, but it became a glaring problem in WWE, and that was his lack of an action. That was his lack of a character with no facial hair. With a facial hair, he looks like a tough guy. Without the facial hair, he looks like a total jobber, man. Total jobber. But that was only a problem in WWE. It wasn't a problem in the indies because he's a product of those. He's a product of the indies, Japan, Mexico, and Impact Wrestling. So I'm happy to see he's back in being pushed heavily, even beating an upset of Bobby Lashley, which I thought was pretty cool. Um, Next is the return, the grand return. I didn't think he ever come back. The return of the Canadian Destroyer, P. Williams, and he has just been awesome since he came back. I thought he was retired. I'm actually friends with him on Facebook. I thought he was retired and working in a band. I didn't see a guy like him ever getting back into wrestling for a while, or at least not like on like a full time basis. I could see him coming back maybe once for a match here or two, but I didn't see him coming back. He's also one of my guys. I did a list of wrestlers I wanted to come back in 2015, and I wanted to come back to TNA and back in 2015. He was on that list, so I got one of the things I wanted, and that was Petey Williams back in Impact Wrestling, man. Back in Impact Wrestling, man. So yeah, Impact Wrestling's just been awesome. I like everybody on the roster except for Fala Bala, the big guy, and Congo Kong. Not too fond of him either. He's just a guy there to squash people. But other than that, Impact Wrestling, still the best wrestling product on television. Still the best wrestling product on television. They just keep getting better and better. Now for Bound for Glory 2017. Bound for Glory 2000. Bound for Glory 2017. Which first off, let's start with the first thing I love about this pay per view. Unlike last year's Bound for Glory, which was awesome, this year it will not be in the Impact Zone. It will be at the Aberdeen Pavilion in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, man. Can't wait, man. Then you got a phenomenal card here. You got, first off, you got Team Impact, Ethan Carter III, Eddie Edwards, and James Storm taking on Team AAA, El Hijo del Fantasma, Tejano, and Pagano. That's who it was. It wasn't Psycho Clown. It was Pagano, who I often confused with Psycho Clown, who's usually teamed up with him, and Tejano. Yeah, you got Rosemary versus the newly Talia Valkyrie, who debuted on Impact, who teased what team she was going to be on and she joined the Heels. You got Grado and Abyss in a Monsters Ball match. You got Moose. And oh yeah, another match is the Six Sides of Steel tag team match. Moose and MMA fighter Stephen Bonner taking on Lashley and my man King Mo. Can't wait for that. Can't wait for that. Then of course you got Sienna versus Gail Kim versus Taryn Terrell versus Ali, 4-way for the Knockouts Championship. Then you got Ohio Valley Wrestling versus the Latin America exchange. Then you got a Ultimate X match with Trevor Lee, Sanjay Dutt, Petey Williams, Matt Sydal, Garza Jr., and the X Cup winner, the new guy Desmond Xavier, who I also think is pretty cool. And of course you got the main event, Eli Drake with Chris Adonis versus Johnny Impact. So like I said, I'm still thinking I'm gonna try to find a bar that shows these pay-per-views. See, I know my dad told me to Google bars in Georgia that shows those. See, I know they show WWE, but I gotta understand, they know they show WWE and UFC and boxing stuff. Do they show other stuff like Impact Wrestling and hell, even in the future, maybe even some Ring of Honor pay-per-views that are on Viewers Choice pay-per-views? Because like I said, I don't have the money to pay for all this stuff, but if I can find a bar that goes to this stuff, yeah, I can watch more stuff, man. Yeah, man, I can't wait. Impact Wrestling is better and better. Only problem I have is that this only another problem I have with Impact Wrestling, besides the departures and Jim Cornette leaving. Another thing I don't like about Impact Wrestling is, see, the current storyline, Bobby Lashley and Moose. Bobby Lashley in the storyline wants out of professional wrestling, and I think that there was some earlier this year. I haven't seen much information on this, but early this year there was some truth to this with Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley's team, America's Top Team, kind of wanted him out of pro wrestling to focus fully on MMA career. I like the idea of him being a two sports athlete and being a champion at both. Being a champion at both. I don't want them to force him to choose between the two, kind of like Hogan and Bischoff did when they came to TNA in 2000. When they came to TNA in 2009. I don't want that. I don't want that here. I don't want that here. But like I said, man, Impact Wrestling, man. Impact Wrestling, best wrestling on television. Always a phenomenal product. Now let's talk about some of that behind the scenes genre, such as at the big Triple Mania pay per view in Mexico earlier this year. Jeff Jarrett, I haven't seen the full pay per view in its entirety yet, but Jeff Jarrett was shown to be in poor physical condition. Was shown to be in poor physical shape when he was wrestling in the ring and had to be sent home, and this caused the GFW, the Anthem Sports, to send him home, and it was reported that Anthem Sports were preparing to sell TNA. Another thing that turned me off the TNA was the constant sell rumors. That was too much, and you know how much I do not like. I do not like the wrestling fans, the WWE fans who want Impact Wrestling dead. I didn't want to hear their mouths, so I was really turned off the TNA for that. But whenever I watch Impact Wrestling, always a phenomenal show. Rarely ever am I disappointed. In Impact Wrestling, it just keeps getting better and better. It just keeps getting better and better. They said Anthem Sports said they want to get back to where TNA was in 2008. I want them to get there, then I want them to be better than what they were in 2008, which they're starting to do, man. But yeah, Impact Wrestling, awesome as always, man. Rarely do I ever have anything negative to say about Impact Wrestling, man. All right, well, this was my long salute of Impact Wrestling in 2017 and my thoughts on Bound for Glory. All right, I'm done.